Welcome, everyone, to the Statman and Robin podcast. We are the dynamic duo of Baltimore sports history, and we're coming to you by way of the Sports History Network. I am Jim Johnson, the Statman, with my partner Robin Haynes. And Robin, you got something for us today, don't you?
Yes, I do, Jim. Yes. This is something that's kind of been kicking around in my head for, I guess, really for some years, and I've never seen it presented in terms of everything I'm going to get into. So, Baltimore sports history. This is about Frank Robinson, uh, and it's just a deep dive in terms of some things that he accomplished in Major League Baseball that if you kind of add it all together, I'm just going to title this Frank Robinson, A Million to One. So as I get into it, I'll kind of explain where I'm going there. So again, Baltimore sports history, Frank Robinson, you don't need any explanation there in terms of what he means. But,
Right.
and also with Frank Robinson, most folks who have a good awareness of Major League history, the high points with Frank Robinson, everybody kind of knows. Um, Hall of Fame career. Um, and one of the first things that comes up, or really they're kind of two things, mainly the MVP award in both leagues, and also the first black manager. Certainly a huge benchmark in Major League history. But I want to get into things he accomplished in his career in terms of awards mainly, um, and even without the awards, if you just look at his play on the field and his statistics, you can kind of just set aside the awards. You can, maybe in the two MVP years, maybe if you rewrite history or replay history, maybe uh, somebody has an even better year in 1961 in the National League, in 1966 in the American League. So I guess basically I'm saying Frank was a great player, just period. But this is kind of what I want to get into. In 1956, his rookie year with the Reds, he won the Rookie of the Year award. So, how many shots do you get at that award in your career? Generally one.
By
So
rule, yes.
let's
No,
check off
no one goes back to back as a rookie. Yeah.
let's check off that box.
Okay.
Okay, so then we get into the MVP awards. National League MVP, 1961 with the Reds. Traded to the Orioles, of course, in the offseason, 65, 66. He wins the American League MVP in 1966. He also won the Triple Crown Award in 1966. Again, so let's just say those four things: Rookie of the Year, two MVPs, one in each league, and a Triple Crown. Who has done that? Well, no one has. But I'm just stay with me, folks, because there's more.
But wait, there's more. Yes.
Right, right. Um, so lots of incredible players. Never played on a World Series winner. He had two World Series championships with the Orioles. Let's check those off. Um, Generally, this isn't top of the line award, but World Series MVP, that's meaningful. Check off that box. He did that in 1966. And then move along to 1971. Um, in fact, coincidentally, the All Star game's being played tonight. And 1971, 55 years ago, he was the All Star game MVP with the Orioles. Um, that game was played in Detroit, and just that game is known for just a bunch of home runs.
Yeah,
And that
everybody always goes to Reggie's home run off the light standard. So
Right.
they probably figure he got the MVP, but actually Frank did.
Yeah, and Frank got the MVP, I think, because he had a 2-run homer that put the American League ahead, and they never lost that
Yeah.
league. Um, so again, that's his major league playing career pretty much. I don't think I've missed anything. But if you want to get into the 500 home run club, okay, 586 career homers. Um, and also, just kind of like a cherry on top here, he won a gold glove in 1958.
See, I
Now,
didn't know that.
I really had to dig for that, and that really surprised me. I actually discovered that like a couple years ago. Um, So 1958 with the Reds, the other two outfielders were that won Gold Gloves, Willie Mays and Hank Aaron. Well, Clemente was certainly in the league and in his prime. He didn't win the Gold Glove that year. Frank got it from him. Now I looked it up. The only thing I can figure is Clemente did have 12 errors, and
That's a lot for an
Frank,
outfield.
that is a lot for an outfielder, and Frank only had 3 errors.
Okay.
But Clemente still led the league for outfielders in putouts and assists. So Clemente gets to more balls and really,
Yeah.
still made more impactful plays. I don't think there's any doubt. But I guess somehow that those 12 errors kind of, jumped out at the voters. Although I do wonder about one thing. Now, I wasn't really able to find anything um, going back into print media back then. In 1958, Frank Robinson played 72 innings at third base.
Really?
That's equivalent of 8 games at third base. Now, I couldn't find out what was the situation. Was it an injury situation? I'm thinking it probably had to be. Um, Now it's 1958, so he's established, but maybe there was some thinking. Let's try Frank at third because we can give whoever a little more playing time. I don't know, but I don't know if that might have played into the Gold Glove thing. Maybe some writers were aware that Frank willingly played third base. Maybe he didn't really. Maybe his heart wasn't in it, but
And he didn't get hurt, so that's good.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I have to wonder about that a little bit. It might have swayed some voters there. It's like, hey, he basically was willing to play third. Certainly not his best position in baseball, but
Yeah.
yeah, maybe he didn't embarrass himself either. So anyway, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah.
Um, so again, what you can do in the majors, set aside his playing career. First black manager, that can't ever be duplicated. There's always got to be a first.
Well, hey,
Uh,
before you get too much into the managerial, can I, since I am a stat man, can I throw in a couple of interesting stats on him?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, strikeouts are a big thing these days. And pretty much anybody, I think it's under any power hitter that's under about 25% strikeout rate. It's like, oh, he's only striking out 23% of the time. Well, Frank Robinson hit 586 home runs. He was a power hitter. Okay.
Hmm.
In 10,006 at bats, he struck out 1,532 times. Just over 15% of the time he struck out. That's what great hitters back then, and I would say great hitters, not home run hitters, great hitters would
Yes.
do is they put the freaking ball in play. And a lot of
Yes.
times you put it out of play over the fence. But I thought that was interesting. And also, there's a stat. You and I talk a lot about OPS, and for the uninitiated, it's on base plus slugging, and there's all sorts of other stuff. We haven't really gotten a lot deeper than that. There's another one I like too. That's OPS plus, And put simply, and I think this is a good way to compare somebody era over era, at least one of the best. I don't know if it's good, but it's one of the best. An OPS of a plus of 100 is that means you're hit the league average. Okay.
Okay.
For his career, Frank had an OPS plus of 154.
Wow.
And in the Triple Crown year with the Orioles in 1966, his OPS plus was 198.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that jumps
Uh,
out at you.
Led the league. And then he had a 3 year stretch in Cincy from 60 to 62 where he led the league in OPS plus. And all 4 of those years, he had an OPS of over 1,000.
Right. Right.
And
And
oh, by the way, 3 of those years, he hit well over 300. And the year he didn't, he hit 297.
yeah. Yeah, there's OPS and OPS plus years with the Reds. When I saw that he led the league 3 straight years,
Yeah,
again, he always is sometimes as a player is kind of second fiddle to Mays and Aaron, if you want to throw Clemente in there. Um, yeah, he did it 3 years in a row when those three guys, all those guys were in their prime.
oh,
So,
yeah,
you know,
definitely.
his record stands up to theirs. I don't think there's any doubt. Um, yeah. So anyway, once his playing days are over, uh, he was a manager for quite a few different teams, and he did win the Manager of the Year award as manager of the Orioles in 1989. The Orioles that year were in the race for the Eastern Division basically the whole season, and that was after they were arguably one of the worst teams in baseball history in 1988. You lose your
Yes.
first 21 games. I
Yeah,
think I think you're in the conversation.
definitely.
um, so anyway, now I had vaguely remembered that he won a Manager of the Year award with the Giants,
I thought he
but
had two. Baseball Reference says he didn't.
yeah, I could not find that, and I remember thinking that you know they had AP Manager of the Year, and then maybe the Sporting News did their version of it, and sometimes it wasn't the same guy. And I
Right.
thought Frank had won it in the National League one year, but I could not find that. I could not find a Sporting News version of it or whatever. So anyway, he won the Manager of the Year one time. I think we've got that well documented.
Yes.
Um, so anyway, when you kind of add up all of these different uh, awards and different accomplishments. And I I think this is why I think of this as a 1,000,000 to 1 probability. And I did really try to use AI and come up with an actual statistical probability for one person in their major league playing and managing career checking off all of these boxes. I didn't really get anywhere. If there's a statistical guru out there that might want to chime in on this, that's fine. But
And
I'm
that's
just,
beyond even the stat man to come up with that.
I was getting ready to say,
No,
uh,
no,
the stat man, I don't think you want to go down this road.
no, I'm pretty sure I don't.
But I think everybody gets it if you just say this is a 1,000,000 to 1, 1,000,000 to 1 odds of this being replicated in another
All right.
major league playing and managing career. I'll put it that way. Um, and I, like I said, I've never heard anybody put all of this together.
No, I'm neither. Yeah. Except you.
And well, so, okay, I'll take credit for that. But I do wonder a little bit if Frank Robinson had spent his playing career or the bulk of his playing career, if everything was identical and he was in the New York media
Or,
market, let's say,
yeah.
Somebody would have dug this up, and
Wow.
it would have been out there years and years ago.
Yeah, the greatest Yankee, or one of the greatest Yankees of all time. Wouldn't say the greatest, but one of the greatest. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's say he was a Yankee for most of his career, and then he played for whoever, the Mets or somebody at some point in his career, and won that National League MVP. But he was in the New York market.
Yeah.
Like I said, somebody would have dug this up by now, and it
Well,
would
and
be
especially during the years he played, the New York teams still got it outsized in our humble but accurate opinions, uh, an outsized share of the media. If it didn't happen in New York, they didn't seem to care.
right.
Um, eh, I hadn't thought of that, but that makes a lot of sense to me.
Sure. I mean, just imagine, what, Mickey Mantle, if he had all of these different accomplishments now, I can't see Mickey Mantle as a manager.
No, nor did anyone
I'm
else.
just throwing his
Yeah,
name out there, and I know Mickey played his entire career in the American League and all that, but
yeah,
I'll just use him as an example,
yeah.
roughly equivalent playing eras for Frank and Mickey. Um, you know, uh,
Pretty good equivalence because Mantle did win a triple crown.
right.
And, if you put their stats together, there's probably some similarity there. I think overall Frank's might be a bit better, but I don't know. I mean, Manos were obviously pretty awesome,
Yeah,
but
I don't.
he tapered off sooner than Frank did because of his injuries.
Yes,
Mandel's last 3 or 4 years were nothing to brag about.
right. Oh no, and Mantle had, like you said, had to put up with so many different injury situations,
Yeah,
especially later in his career.
yeah,
Um, but again, that for whatever it's worth, that's that whole New York media bias.
yeah, yeah. Well, let me take you down a little rabbit hole full of footnotes here. And remember, we've already said we are all about footnotes on this broadcast.
Sure.
That starts with Frank Robinson, but it starts when Frank was traded after the 1971 season, ostensibly to create a spot for can't miss prospect Don Baylor to get in. Now, and I think we mentioned this in our Mount Rushmore discussion in our last episode, but that was a year before the designated hitter was enacted because
Right.
that would have been Frank's spot. So it was
Absolutely.
unfortunate timing for the Orioles. And they did not get a great return at first blush on the trade. Let me make sure I can bring that up again because I am not going to remember that. Okay. So they traded on December 2nd, 1971. They traded Frank along with relief pitcher Pete Rickard, who was not inconsequential, and received household names only in their own household. Uh, Royal Stillman, Sergio Robles, Bob O'Brien. I don't know if any of them ever played for the Orioles, so I didn't bother to look. And one moderately familiar name, Doyle Alexander. And I want to talk about him for a minute because he was involved in trades that really changed the at least the short term future for two franchises after that. Doyle had a interesting career and not a bad one. He wound up pitching 19 years and won 190. He won 194 games. I'm looking at his fielding. That's why I'm not seeing it.
Mhm.
Man, he had one of those baseball reference pages that's very long. Yeah, he won 194 games. Okay, that's solid. Didn't win that many in with the Orioles. He pitched in Baltimore about 4.5 years. His best year, he was 12-8. Oh, okay. Um, then they traded him in 1976 in a massive trade that I know you're going to be familiar with, Robin, and some of our listeners are going to be familiar with. They traded him to the Yankees along with Jimmy Freeman, Elrod Hendricks, and Ken Holtzman. and
Okay.
Grant Jackson.
Yeah, I remember
Now,
that trade.
yes, in return, well, first let's look at what they gave out. I don't know who Jimmy Freeman is. Okay. Ken Holtzman was basically done. He had no impact. Hendricks finished the season. I think he was back with the Orioles either the next season or the season after.
I think you're
So
right.
he had no impact. Grant Jackson, they had a terrific second half of that year because this was during the season. Had a terrific second half of the year for the Yankees. They left him exposed in the expansion draft. Seattle picked him and then traded him to the Pirates. He had some terrific years in Pittsburgh, including against the Orioles in the '79 series.
In
Okay.
the series, yep.
So the Yankees got very little impact from that. What they gave up was Rick Dempsey, Timmy Martinez, Scott McGregor, Rudy
You can
May.
stop right there. You can stop
Right,
right there.
those
Yes.
first three guys were part of the core of the Orioles Magic teams years later.
Yep.
Rudy May had a couple of decent years as the Orioles starter. And then Dave Pagan, I think, did a little bit in there as a spot starter and reliever. But that really fleshed out the core of that team that wound up being very competitive, winning two divisions and a World Series with them as the core, and of course Dempsey being the '83 Series MVP in his greatest moment.
Mm-hmm.
Then he Alexander bounced around as guys like him tend to do, and then he wound up in 1987 with the Braves. He had signed in May, and they traded him in August. Now, the Tigers gave up a prospect for him that I'm sure they regret. John Smoltz, straight
Oh,
up.
wow.
Well,
Straight
like,
up. Really?
yes. Now, Smoltz was a couple years away, but he was worth the wait, wasn't he? Gee, he won over 200 games and also had 3 or 4 great years as a relief pitcher. Now, the short-term benefit for the Tigers is this was again late in the season. It was a waiver trade because back then when they had to clear waivers, and they had, that was a thing, and they were able to do that. He came in for Detroit. And he went 9-0, like a 1.5 earned run average, and the Tigers made up a deficit on the Toronto Blue Jays. And Toronto came into Detroit for a 3-game series to end the season up one, and Detroit swept them.
Okay.
And
I forgot
Alexander
about
won one of those games.
Right.
2 years later, the Tigers collapsed. They were in last place. And leading the collapse was Doyle Alexander, who wound up 6-18 and led the league in losses.
Ooh.
And that was it for Doyle. That was the he should have walked away after '87 in hindsight because he would have been on a high note. But yeah, things did not end well for him. But again, a solid career. But the players the teams got for him, he
Yeah.
changed the direction of the Orioles and the Atlanta Braves franchises, and briefly the Tigers, although maybe ultimately that was for the worst in the long term. You know, he would have looked pretty good in a Tiger uniform, I'm sure they would think. So that all started with the Frank Robinson trade. So it's interesting with the benefit of hindsight to go back and look at how some of these trades rippled across. And yeah, our buddy Doyle was quite an example of that. And it all started with the meager return immediately that the Orioles got for Frank, but then that turned into a pretty good return a few years later if you look at the long-term, long view, big picture kind of thing.
Right.
Baseball can be an odd game,
Oh, yes, it can.
and you can't really evaluate a trade. You know, that '87 trade, oh my gosh, the Tigers got a steal. They got this kid and he led him to the division where
Right.
they lost to the Oakland A's in the no, they lost to the Twins in the playoffs.
Twins. Yes, it
And
was.
the Twins won the World Series. But in hindsight, it's like, oh my God, the Tigers, what were you doing? That took years to flesh out. But anyway, that's a pile of footnotes for everybody to consider. But that kind of opened the door for me to do my Statman thing and go, go down a bunny hole. But that was a fun one to go through, especially since it ultimately did turn out pretty well for the Orioles.
Oh, can you imagine? You could do a podcast solely about the history of baseball trades. I mean, you could start back.
A series of podcasts. Yes.
Yeah, or you could make it, a podcast that lasted years.
Well, let's not, but we could. Let's pop in there every now and then. Let's not put a tent there. But isn't it interesting? A couple of the more formative trades in Orioles history were with the Yankees.
Yep.
Remember that 54 trade,
right?
Where I think it was 17 total players after the 54 season. One of them being Don Larson.
Don Larson, yes.
Don Larson, who had gone 3-21 for the Orioles in 54. That's right, 3 wins and 21 losses, and 2 years later pitches the only perfect game in postseason history. Yeah, saw that coming. Gee, I don't know who all the other guys were. I don't care win or lose it, but that's the one that stands out.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If you're going to bring up Don Larson, this has always been one of those things that I've wondered about. That perfect game in the World Series.
Yeah.
How the hell did he do it? What did he have working for him that day? I mean, was it just he could put
That's
the
some
ball?
Great analysis on your part,
Really, what was working for him that day? What were his strengths as a pitcher, and how did he do it? I would love to find that out. I've never been able to get into that. I mean, if that happened in today's world, every
They
pitch.
probably have him drug tested.
Yeah, in today's world, perfect game in the World Series. I mean, every pitch would be analyzed and replayed. And what was the spin? What was his spin rate that day?
Right, there you go. There's a little dip into modern baseball. Yes. Oh, yeah. That is one of the. I mean, you've got to call it a fluke. And with all due respect, you've got to call it a fluke. Now I'm looking up what Larson did in '56, and I mean he must have had a decent season, or else they wouldn't have started him in the first place. He was 11-5. Yeah, nice year. Of course, he was playing for an awesome team.
Right.
20 complete games. So yeah, he was their 4th starter. But geez, yeah. How did he do it?
If there's someone out there listening that has some insight, please,
we'd love to know. Hit us up on an email. Under 10,000 words would be appreciated. And just
Statman and Robin at gmail.com. We anxiously await an explanation.
Please. And I guess we can kind of leave it on that note, my friend. We don't just give you the answers; we give you more questions, and I guess that's good. Questions that we're not going to answer. Hopefully, somebody out there can. So we hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Statman and Robin podcast. And if you have any questions, ideas, feedback, or please, if you can tell us how Don Larson did it, we'd love to hear it. The email that Robin mentioned. Remember, it's good to look back as long as you live forward. Thanks for listening, everybody.
See ya.